What is up, YouTube? This is Cody on the Real Sports Talk, bringing you the Aaron's 499 post-race video from Talladega. And Brad K comes away with this win after kind of sitting back a lot of the day. And the guy that ended up pushing him to the win, Kyle Busch, also sat back, didn't really show his hand until the very end when he shoved Brad Keselowski out in front of Matt Kenseth and Greg Biffle. And Keselowski got off his bumper in turn 4 and cruised on to the win. Kyle couldn't catch him from there. And this was Dodge's first win at Talladega since the 70s, and the first win for Roger Penske at Talladega as a car owner. So that's good for a little piece of historic data. Brad gets his second win of the season, second win at Talladega in the Sprint Cup Series. And this race was really a good combination of tandem and pack racing. If you really wanted to get out front, you had to get in a tandem, but you could just ride pretty much if you wanted to in the pack. And that's really what the fans got. They asked for it. So we saw a lot of pack racing today, and a problem with that, though, was overheating, and I'll get to that in a minute. I'll just give you a quick synopsis of the race here in the wrecks. Regan Smith blew an engine on lap 16, a lot of green flag racing from there. Guys not getting the fuel, all of the fuel into the tank and getting those cars full because they were green flag stops, and they wanted to lose as little time as possible. It's not necessarily on purpose, but it's just kind of what happens when you're trying to get every second you possibly can on pit road, not necessarily getting all the gas into the car. So 125 laps later, Eric Almirola, a guy said to look out for, runs out of gas in front of on the low line, in front of a bunch of cars, and he kind of gets into one of the little big ones. There wasn't really a huge big one, but this one collected 9 or 10 cars, I believe, and it collected the likes of Carl Edwards, Landon Castle, Dave Blaney, Jeff Gordon, and from there on there were a couple of small wrecks, and later in the race, after one of the wrecks on a green flag restart, AJ Allmendinger tried to block Denny Hamlin as he tried to go from the outside to the middle lane. Allmendinger got really mad after the race, but the truth is that he cut down on Hamlin. Hamlin was there, and he still tried to block him, and that's how that wreck got started. So obviously, AJ didn't see the replay for that, or he doesn't want to accept that he was the reason that this accident happened. And that wreck damaged a few cars like Kevin Harvick, Tony Stewart, who were hard charging at the end. I mean, they were just flying from the back of the pack. It was like, where did they come from? And they were just coming up on the pack, and it looked like they were going to be a force to be reckoned with toward the end of this race. Tony led early, but you didn't see him much after that. He kind of went back, and those guys were, as I said, charging from the back. So, as I said, overheating was a huge story today, along with fuel issues and those hotter conditions at Talladega. This was the hottest day that they've been at practice all week, or hotter than the days that they were practicing, so they didn't really get an accurate fuel load or estimation on how long the cars could run on a fuel run. Also, with that, the guys were on the gas and off the gas a lot, and that can mess with your fuel calculations as well, because you don't want to run into the guy in front of you or get too close to him and get too hot. And that kind of leads me to the overheating situation. And some guys, like Jeff Gordon, they couldn't even race in the pack, which was very frustrating for them without overheating. And that was just something that's very irritating to those drivers, but they need to do that to keep the pack racing around and stay away from this tandem racing. And that's attributed to partly they pretty much took the Daytona setup, made a few tweaks, and brought it to this track, but the matter really is that this Talladega track needs its own package because it is a completely different track. And something that the announcers didn't really connect to the overheating issue today. They said that it was hot outside, but it was like 90 today in Alabama, so that really affects the racetrack, the racing surface, and the heat that it gives off. And at Daytona, it wasn't really that hot because it was that night race, and it was like 60s or 70s out, and it was like 90 at Alabama today, where Talladega's ran, and that is a huge factor. And obviously, you'd think it'd be obvious, but they didn't bring it up today with cars overheating. The hot temperatures affect that a lot, and as I said, it was cooler in practice the days that they ran there. So that's another factor that led to that. And on that green-white checker finish, Matt Kenseth was a guy that he was the class of the field all day. He obviously had the fastest car, but he tried to team up with his teammate Greg Biffle on the green-white checker restart on the outside line, I believe, and he got a push from Greg Biffle, and then by the time they got out of turn 2, they got disconnected. And that was partly because Matt was too fast for anyone to push him today. Matt would have had to drag the brake for someone to stay on his bumper, and he just got out in front of whoever was pushing him. And that's a very difficult situation to be in as a driver, because you want to go fast and you expect that car to keep up with you because the cars are so closely matched. But obviously that was not the case for Matt today. He had a great car, and this was a situation at a super speedway where being too fast can often really bite you in the butt. So that really happened to him today, and the results from that race were Brad Keselowski first, Kyle Busch second, Matt Kenseth took third, Casey Kane pushed by Clint Bowyer. Bowyer was pushing water for like the last lap and a half, and he still pushed Kane to the 4th place finish. Greg Biffle in 5th, Bowyer in 6th. David Reagan, tip of the hat to him, 7th place finish, getting pushed by Dale Earnhardt Jr. for a portion there. And Trevor Bayne, last year's Daytona 500 winner, finishes 8th. He stayed out of trouble all day. Good day for him. And Dale Earnhardt Jr., who he didn't really have a winning car today, I wouldn't say. And he had a solid car, but not necessarily a winning car. Not necessarily the speed he wanted in it. And Jeff Burton finished in 10th position. Some notables: Carl Edwards in 28th. Jeff Gordon, struggling season continues here. He finished in 33rd. Jimmy Johnson had issues with his equipment, as is Ryan Newman. They finished in 35th and 36th position. And Truex, Stewart, and Harvick all finished in the 20s after being involved in wrecks as well. So Greg Biffle stays at the top of the standings after this race, 7 points ahead of Matt Kenseth, who moved up 2 spots to 2nd, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. moves down a spot to 3rd, and he is 9 points behind. Then it jumps to 27 points to Denny Hamlin. And the top 10 pretty much stayed the same, except for Carl Edwards dropping out and Kyle Busch coming in. And Clint Bowyer coming in as well. So Brad Keselowski is now in 12th position with 2 wins, so he basically locked up his spot in the chase with this format. And 2 wins are huge, and Kyle Busch said it after the race. He wasn't so disappointed at losing the race as he was to losing to Brad Keselowski, because now Keselowski has 2 wins to Kyle Busch's 1. So that puts him ahead of Kyle Busch, and Ryan Newman is farther up in the standings than Kyle Busch right now, so Busch wouldn't even make the chase because he has the same amount of wins as Newman, but Newman is higher up in the standings. And Jeff Gordon loses 6 spots in the point standings today, down to 23rd position in the points, so he's starting to get in the danger zone. He's got to start winning some races here, and I'd say he probably has to win 2 races by the time the season's over, because if Brad K doesn't get into that top 10, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I'm sure Kyle Busch is going to win another race at some point. So, and then there's always that unexpected guy that comes out and at the midway point of the season or beyond and wins a race or 2 and becomes a strong contender for the championship. Or not necessarily a strong contender, but at least a contender for the chase. So Jeff Gordon's definitely going to have to work on that moving forward. And just before I close here, quick update on Eric McClure, who was involved in that wreck in the Nationwide Series race. He is stable and alert, talking to family members in the hospital and at Birmingham. So he's looking to be in okay shape, and that's good news. Next week we're heading to the Lady in Black at Darlington. So I'll have a video up for you then.